Hi, folks. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from. I'm Ashish Manchanda, CEO and founder of Risely. And today we have a very, very special guest with us. His name is Steve Cadigan. He doesn't need any introduction at all. But Steve, welcome to the RiseUp Radio. I'm really, really excited to have you today with us.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Awesome. Steve, before we jump in, would you like to tell our audience a little bit about yourself and maybe just take them through briefly through your journey, maybe?
Sure. Let's see. I started my academic career my academic life as a history major in undergraduate. I had no plans when I went to college, nor did I have any plans when I graduated college what I was going to do with my life. I really didn't. I had no fears, but I was open to any possibilities. And I went to school on the East Coast of the U.S. and moved to California, where my sister was. And I stumbled upon a job in the fashion industry after about 3 or 4 months of searching and sending my resume
Wow.
around. And I was hired to be a credit and collections clerk. So I was
Okay.
calling people, asking them to send us
Mm-hmm.
money. And
Mm-hmm.
but what I liked about the company I worked for was that they rotated you around. And in the second rotation, I landed in human resources, doing recruiting. And at
Okay.
that point, I completely fell in love with the profession. And what I found in the world of recruiting and human resources was what I really loved about sports, which was building teams, finding out who
Mm-hmm.
operates in what best in what environment, what employees match well with what leaders, and so forth. And I really loved it. And it wasn't work for me, and it still isn't work for me. It's just a really great challenge, and it's a lot of fun. So, and that was about a year and a half, 2 years into my journey that I discovered it. I've changed from there. I moved around to probably 6 different industries over the course of the next 30 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
And over the course of that journey, I had a chance to live and work in Singapore for 2 years, live and work in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada for 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
All my kids are born either in Singapore or Canada.
Okay.
And and then probably in the midst of that journey, probably about let's see, maybe 20 years in, I was asked to be a chief human resource officer for the first time, and this was a company in Canada called PMC
Mm-hmm.
Sierra. And I wasn't sure that I wanted to do that because most of the human resource leaders that I saw, I didn't like or respect or want to be like, and I didn't want their lifestyle. And so I'm like, I don't know that that's the place I want to go.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they convinced me to give it a try, and fortunately, I had an incredible CEO, Bob Bailey, who's still to this day a dear friend and a mentor. And he said, "No, we'll make this work." And I was like, "Are you sure?" "I'm not sure I'm going to be good at this." And he was a great boss. So roll the tape forward, probably 2008. I returned to the United States, joined
Mm-hmm.
a video game company called Electronic Arts, and they had a new
Mm-hmm.
CEO that was looking to do a lot of acquisitions. And I had done for 4 years at Cisco, I had led the M&A integration team, and we did 50 deals.
Right.
And as you know, Cisco in the late 90s and early 2000s was a very prolific acquirer. And we
Yes.
acquired companies all over the world. And I was on the team and led the team that brought the people in. And so
Okay.
I thought at one point I thought that's what I was going to do with my life was just going to do M&A. Maybe I would join
Mm-hmm.
like a Deloitte or a consulting firm and just help
Mm-hmm.
people with that because it's high velocity change. And
Yeah.
any of
Yeah.
the listeners who've been acquired or acquired a company know that it's really, really taxing and trying. And you
Correct.
don't know, do I have a job? Are they going to move me? Are they going to change my boss, change my
Yeah.
title, change my compensation? So I really liked that work, and I found that I was really good at bringing calm quickly to a crazy environment, and also building trust quickly. It's always been a signature of my leadership is the capacity to build trust with people and rapport really, really quickly. So but anyway, I found myself in the video game industry back in the United States, and I that's when the 2008 second mortgage crisis hit. And
Mm-hmm.
so the Electronic Arts ambitions to buy companies disappeared because they didn't have a
Yeah.
ton of cash. And the board's like, no, we're not going to spend any money in an
Mm-hmm.
uncertain marketplace. And
Mm-hmm.
so let's shift our focus. So my job basically disappeared, and I started looking for other opportunities, and that's when LinkedIn approached me to be their first chief human resources officer. And believe it or not, I turned them down initially. I'm like, no, I'm
Oh, you
fine.
did?
Yeah, I'm not. I don't want to change jobs, and I wasn't even interested in interviewing. And then a couple of my friends
Wow.
said, "Are you crazy? Like, you should go
Really, I
do
would have
that."
said the same.
But at that point, nobody, even the founders, investors of LinkedIn, had any idea what was
Yeah.
in store. I
What it could
mean,
be, yeah. Yeah.
right. It was just the same ambition that every startup has. Oh, we're going to be great,
Hmm.
and we've got good
Hmm. Hmm.
investors, and the
Hmm.
roadmap looks clear. But the run rate was a few $1 million ARR at that point.
Hmm.
There
Hmm.
was no $1 million customers,
Yeah.
and they were still pivoting into this new recruiting business. It was
Hmm.
more of a networking platform, and I don't know if you remember,
Right.
but Plaxo was the networking,
Hmm.
Rolodex that a lot of us
Hmm.
use,
Hmm.
and because you
Yeah.
could take your Outlook address book, load it up into Plaxo, and when you change
Right. Right.
companies, it would still be there,
You
right?
could carry it forward, yeah.
That's right. And then that's really what, LinkedIn's core business was just connecting people. And then someone said, "Hey, we'll pay you to help us use your platform to recruit." So anyway, that experience to me, Ashish, was completely different from anything I'd ever done because I was a big company guy. I never had to build anything new, really. I just had to
Hmm.
fix what other people had done. I mean, M&A work was new work, but
Hmm.
most of the, big company stuff is, fine tune what someone built before you and just
Yeah.
make it more
Yeah. Yeah.
current and modern.
Correct.
And at LinkedIn, I had to actually build the entire human resource agenda from nothing.
So, quick question, Steve. How big was LinkedIn at that time, right? So, just to get
400,
some context
about
from big to
400
small.
people. Yeah,
So
400
that's it. It
people
was
and
basically a
about
very, very small organization which was still growing up and didn't have a very clear direction. Also, hey, what's the business model? What's the revenue model going to be, right? A lot of uncertainty, a lot of question marks in terms of how we're going to solve it, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. We
Hmm.
had maybe four offices, 400 people, 6 years old when I joined.
Okay. Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah. And then, over the next 3.5, 4 years, which felt like 20, we grew from 400 to 4,000. We grew
Hmm.
from four offices to 26 offices and
Hmm.
2 countries to 17 countries.
Hmm.
And built what I believe very humbly to be one of the best corporate cultures that I've ever been a part of.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and uh, and so after that incredible journey, um, I decided to just take a break
Hmm.
and focus on being a dad and investing more time into, reconnecting with people I had no time to spend with because I was living
Yeah.
such a busy life, and that led me ultimately. That was about 12 years ago that I left. I started my own enterprise, helping entrepreneurs grow great companies,
Hmm.
or helping them build great talent strategies and
Hmm.
what's first started happening is the founders of LinkedIn who left to go on to do other enterprises, they started to call me, and then other
Right.
people started to call me, and then I was asked by Harvard, Stanford, universities around the world, can you come and teach a class?
Hmm.
Stanford wound up building a course around the culture that we grew at LinkedIn, which was pretty exciting.
Yeah.
And then, and so I started to shape over the course of the next few years, what do I want to do and how do I want to do it? And that's led me to start my own firm, Cadigan Ventures, which is really just me and my dog here that's, sitting at my feet. And just going in and really helping people navigate a really complex landscape of work.
Yeah.
After speaking at, hundreds of conferences and schools, someone finally said, "Hey, where's your book?" And I said, "I don't have a book, but it's right here. I've got a few
It's
of
right
them."
there.
And so during right before the pandemic, I started a book and I finished it
Hmm.
in the middle of the pandemic and published
Hmm.
it. And that's a book called Workquake. I've got a copy here for anyone who's on the video.
Hmm.
And that came out in the middle of 21 and
Okay.
immediately became a hot seller on Amazon. And that's
Hmm.
been really fun for me. It's opened a lot more doors.
Yeah.
For some reason, the universe trusts you and has more, gives you more credibility if you've published a book. Which is an interesting perspective. And so, yeah, so that's where I am right now. I have clients on most every continent of the world.
Hmm.
I spend a lot of time in Europe, especially in Portugal right now. That's
Hmm.
probably a major client. I have two big clients in city of Lisbon. And so I do that, and I absolutely love what I do, which is helping people figure out how we're going to deal with the future of work. And as we've talked offline a few
Yeah.
times. I
Yep.
mean, artificial intelligence, remote work,
Yep.
increased turnover. There are many,
Yep.
many trends that are really presenting real challenges for leaders today.
Correct. Correct. And we're going to come back to all these trends, Stephen,
Great.
all these important topics we're going to come, but I want to go back to history a little bit, right? I
Mm,
want to
mm,
peel the onion more around your journey, first. So, history major, six different industries, then going into tech and, achieving everything, right?
mm.
During this journey, when was the first time you started managing people? And how was that experience? Were you ready for it? Were you not ready for it? What happened? Just take us through that.
Oh man, I have so many lessons on my leadership journey. Let me share one before I became a leader. This was right out of college. I
Hmm,
was on credit and collections on a team of about 20. Okay. And
hmm,
that team of
hmm,
20 was broken up into five smaller teams of four.
hmm,
And I
hmm,
was on fire. I was a 22-year-old kid, hungry, and I was
hmm,
getting better results than people who'd been doing it for 15, 20 years.
hmm,
Okay.
hmm,
One
hmm.
day, my group takes me out to lunch and they looked at me and they said, if you keep making us look bad, this is not gonna this is not gonna end well for you. Basically, like,
Yeah, you're
we're
not gonna
gonna
survive.
yeah, like what why are you, what are you doing? You're like, you must be
Yeah,
cheating because we've been doing
yeah.
this long. And I was like, no, do this. And so I realized succeeding individually on a team
Hmm,
has some consequences, right, to it.
hmm.
So I
Yeah.
thought, okay, why don't I try to help them learn what I taught myself, like some shortcuts and some hacks. And
Hmm,
this is
hmm,
before email, really. So we're using these big IBM mainframes on these
hmm,
accounts receivable systems and accounts payable systems. And so I showed them how I saw things. And that was a really big lesson for me that sometimes when you've been doing something a long time, you don't see different patterns and different trends. It's someone
correct.
who's never done it before can see, right? And
True.
so, but I don't think I led anybody until probably, I went to fashion, then I went to an insurance company for a subsidiary of Allianz Insurance, which is a major global insurance carrier.
Hmm,
Then, still independent. Then I went to high tech in 1994. I went to Advanced Micro Devices, and
hmm,
then 98 I went to Cisco and started building.
hmm,
So it was probably my fourth company where
hmm.
for the first time I started actually to have direct reports. And over the first 4 years at Cisco, I think I had a team of 25. Yeah.
Wow.
And
And how many
that's
years
what started.
in your career was that?
So that
Four
was
companies, but how many
probably
years?
15, yeah, about, no, let's see, four, eight,
Wow.
yeah, about 12 years in, 12 years in. Mhm.
Awesome. So huge, body of work as an individual contributor, then you become a manager, right? Or you
Mhm.
have a team. How was
Right.
that experience like?
Hard, really hard. Yeah. And it's hard. It was hard because, I would build a career doing. I hadn't built a
Yeah.
career like teaching other people to do. And it
Hmm.
was, and then recognizing that everyone brings a different skill set to the table is sort of hard for me.
True.
Like,
Hmm.
and sometimes, you ask an artist, like, how do you create your art? Like, I don't know. I just do it. Like a
Yeah.
lot of people say, well, Steve, how are you able to be so successful? Like, I don't know. Like, I just
Hmm.
was, right? I
Hmm.
said, you have to ask the people around me what they saw in me who can probably,
Hmm.
better vouch for that. So it's a difficult question, but I think, um, I'd seen a lot of good leaders over the course of my career. I'd seen more bad leaders
Hmm.
than good
Hmm.
leaders, which had helped inform me like, well, I'm not going to do that and I'm not going to do this.
Hmm. Hmm.
And my style is much more highly, highly collaborative. And
Hmm.
I never have led through power, position, or authority. I've led
Hmm.
through persuasion and influence.
Hmm.
Like, let's
Hmm.
do this because it's the right thing, not because I told you
Hmm.
to, but if
Hmm.
we don't
Hmm.
do it this way, we're both going to fail. Right.
Yeah.
And so the biggest lesson I had in that first segment of my of managing people came one day when we were starting to do a lot of acquisitions that had employees in China. And my boss said, we need to hire someone who speaks Mandarin to be on the team. And we had this one candidate who was ex US military airborne ranger, self taught Mandarin. Okay.
Wow. Hmm.
And was very smart, been to graduate school at Stanford and did all these things. And
Impressive.
and I was like intimidated by him. I was like, no, he's
Has
not a
to
good
be.
fit, and and
Hmm.
his personality was a little stiff, right? And we were a very
Hmm.
loose team,
Hmm. Hmm.
ex-military. You can imagine
Hmm.
sort of this profile, and he's a very intense guy. And I was like, so I told my boss, yeah, he's not a good fit. And she said, yes, he is. He's really good. You need him. I said, no, I don't think so. And I was feeling threatened, I think, a little bit by how
Hmm.
good he
Hmm.
was. And she said, Steve, he is better than you in some things. But listen, if you bring him on, it's going to free you up to do many new things and elevate yourself and the team.
Hmm.
And she couldn't have been more right. And that was a great lesson for me. Hiring people better than you are in some domains. And I had, at that point, I had like a PhD in mergers and acquisitions. I mean, we were written up in the Wall Street Journal, and I was interviewed
Yeah.
by Fortune
Yep.
magazine, and we were invited to speak at conferences all over the world. Like Cisco has got world-class M&A. It wasn't because of what I was doing; it was the whole team was really, really great, and
Yeah.
and we were doing some really interesting experiments. So, but that was a great lesson, and I talk
Hmm.
about that in my book. Like this boss I had, Mimi Jagu, had never been to college, but she really was a master at understanding people, and she said, "You need to do this. It's going to be good for you." And I really was really, really resistant. I did it, and that guy that I hired became one of my
Did you
dear
do it
friends.
willingly? Steve, did you do it willingly or you just gave
I
in because your boss was
I
saying?
trusted her a lot. I really trusted her
Okay.
a lot. She'd been phenomenal
Hmm.
to me and given me lots
Hmm.
of trust. And so I said,
Hmm.
okay, I will trust you. And it didn't take more than a month or two for me to go, oh man, this guy. And
Yeah.
he was easy to work with. And I
Yeah.
usually had to explain things a lot to people. And he was like, just give me
Hmm.
what you need done. And he would just go. I was like, whoa,
Yeah.
how did you do that? And so I learned from him. And that was a great, and it was a big message to the rest of my team. Like, hey, Steve's willing to learn from us. It's not that
Yeah.
he's the master sage that knows everything. Hmm.
Correct. I think the open mindset that you showed, which is, openness to learn from that person,
Yeah.
but also because you were really not confident initially, but still you went ahead with that decision with open mind. I think that's basically what the game changer was, isn't it?
Right. Right. And I think a lot of organizations, on this whole notion of leadership, I didn't want to be a leader. I didn't want to be a manager of people. I just
Hmm.
wanted to do
Hmm.
really interesting work, honestly.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
most companies, they pay managers more.
Yep.
They give managers a lot more credit, and they show a lot
Yep.
more reverence, and they shine a spotlight on managers and leaders more than
Hmm.
individual contributors.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so, for me, I was like, okay, I'll go do this, but it's kind of a hassle. Like,
Hmm.
there's a lot of
Hmm.
parts of that I'd rather just do the work than deal with, problems and people issues and things like that. And over time you get comfortable with it, and people tell you, wow, you're really, really good at this. And then
Hmm.
you start having people say, I want to work on your team. And that's when I
Yeah.
knew, sort of unexpectedly at Cisco, like I had this team of 25 HR, leaders, and Cisco's HR organization was maybe 500 people at the time. It was big.
Yep.
And we were,
Hmm.
35,000 people. And I had a good proportion of that whole organization say, we want to work for you. And so that was like, you do? Why? Like, because you're a really great leader. I'm like, I am? Like, I didn't really
So
think I
word
was.
travels faster. Yeah. Good word
Right.
travels faster. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Steve, if you could go back in time, you said you were a reluctant manager, right? You didn't want
Mm.
to manage teams. Do you think it was the right thing that you started managing teams? Or if you were to go back in time, you say, I was good at it as an individual contributor and I would like to continue as an individual contributor?
I don't know. I mean, I would probably still take the path because I like solving big problems, and when you have a big team and you have a big opportunity, it's really energizing to be
Hmm.
a decision maker, to help
Hmm.
people
Hmm.
steer their careers, to help, solve big problems with organizing a team, just like a coach in a
Yeah.
sports environment. Like I started to really find my rhythm at Cisco. And
Hmm.
the work was really challenging. Like you have to go and you're
Hmm.
flying into a new company and you don't know if these people are going to hate you or going to like you. You don't know the culture. You don't know anything. And you got to build their trust really quickly. And
Yeah.
so that was really fun. It was very intense work. And those of all the colleagues I've ever worked with in my career, that group,
Hmm.
we're
Hmm.
still tight. We're still like, if
Hmm.
anyone calls me from that group or we ever get together, it's like immediately we go back in time because
Yeah.
the intensity allows you to see the best and worst of someone, and they see you at your
Correct.
best and worst. And if many of us who've had the good fortune of going to university have great friends. Why? Because they saw us at our best and our worst,
That's right.
and that's, when we were vulnerable, and when we're, celebrating success, but also needing encouragement. And that kind of work was really, really great. And I think it was a good environment for me to, grow into being a leader. But, if I look back on it, I'm so glad I did. That was
Hmm.
such a an evolution for me in terms of setting me up for future things, because not
Hmm.
only was
Hmm.
Cisco a very well-respected company, but it was really well led, and there was a lot of really smart people that I was
Yep.
around that allowed me to learn a lot of good stuff. Hmm.
Right. Right. So, Steve, in the essence of vulnerability, right? What is that one mistake that you did in your people management career that you wish you hadn't done?
Oh gosh, that's a long list, man.
Just one, maybe the biggest one.
Yeah. Oh gosh, let me see. I hired an individual one time who was the first time I'd ever done it, who was a Harvard graduate. And I assumed because they went to Harvard that they wouldn't need a lot of help, a lot of support, that they would sort of like, wow, they're
Hmm.
from Harvard, they're gonna,
Hmm. Hmm.
and they were not very motivated. They were way
Hmm.
more academic, and I had
Hmm.
projected unfairly.
Hmm.
And it was a bad outcome for both of us because I was expecting
Hmm.
something and she was expecting something,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
we just missed there. And so
Hmm.
I had projected, because someone had been somewhere, that the quality of her work was going to be very high, and it wasn't.
Right.
And I didn't do my homework. And so
Right.
that was a big lesson for me, that just because someone has worked in a fancy company, just because someone
Hmm.
has worked, or a degree from a really good, does not mean they're a good worker, right? Like, you got to
Right.
go
Right.
dig and find evidence of that, because succeeding in the academic frontier doesn't always carry forward into the work frontier. You
True.
understand?
True.
Those are two
True.
completely different domains. Just like someone who
Right.
interviews really well doesn't mean they can do the job well.
They're
It
gonna
means
do the
they
job
know how
well.
to interview
Yeah.
really well, possibly, right?
True.
And
True.
so that was an interesting, a hard learning. It turned
Hmm.
around, but we sort of had to do a reset and go, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'd put her in this level, and she should have been at this level. You know
Hmm.
what I'm
Hmm.
saying?
Hmm.
Now that's
Hmm.
tough
Hmm.
when someone's an expectation here. So at some
Correct.
point, I'm like, listen, either we have to end this relationship, or you're going to have to take a step down, because all the people
Yeah.
you work with, they see you don't know what you're doing. Okay.
Correct.
And that's my fault putting you there. But you also represented that you knew a lot more stuff that you don't really know. And so, we both have to take responsibility
Hmm.
here.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Hmm. Must have been hard for sure.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. We're going to shift gears now, right?
Mm.
So into the future now, right? Let's talk about
Yeah.
future of work. Let's talk
Okay.
about AI. Let's talk about the role of managers in this new age. And
Mm.
more importantly, let's talk about remote work, right?
Okay.
I'm just gonna let you share your thoughts first, and then a few questions from my side.
Sure. I guess, let's just start with the one of the largest headlines right now, which is this return to the office,
Hmm.
RTO wave that we're seeing right now. And I've talked to people on many sides of this conversation and debate. And I think what is missing is a recognition that the employers and employees are coming at this from two different places. Employers are
Hmm.
saying, you're more productive when you're here, and we're more productive as an organization when you're in the office, and we're all in the office. Okay. Generally speaking, making a big
Hmm.
generalization.
Yeah.
And employees are
Yeah.
saying, no, 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 I'm way more productive when I'm at home. I'm not
Hmm.
distracted. There's not people bothering me. I'm able to focus and get deeper, contribution, which the company benefits from. And oh, by the way, Mrs. and Mr. Company, your results have not been impacted in any way since I've been working remote. So what do you mean
Yeah.
we're more productive when we're in there?
And I'm
And I
saving
think
time, not traveling as well, right? I'm not
correct.
commuting. I'm
Yeah.
saving time as well. Yeah. Hmm.
And it's better for the planet and carbon
Yep.
footprint, et cetera, right? And I
Hmm.
can probably manage my life a little bit better. So
Hmm.
what's I think what's missing in the conversation is what employees are really saying is that my life is more productive when I'm home
Hmm.
more.
Hmm.
Not just work. My whole life is more productive. And isn't
Hmm.
that why we work? To have a productive life, to contribute
Yep.
to our community, to be a better parent, sibling, son, daughter, brother, mother, father. Like, isn't that why we work? To enable us to
Yep.
have the financial resources to be, be a good contributor in all those domains. And so
Correct.
what leaders face is an unknown reality of, can we really build better cultures, and can we perform better as a team in a more remote reality than what we had before?
Hmm.
The truth
Hmm.
is, we don't know yet. We just
Hmm.
don't know. And
Hmm.
when they've got a board breathing down their neck, when they've got investors saying, give me results, what leaders who have had teams that were more together than dispersed before the pandemic are saying, I know I can deliver when we're together. I don't know I can deliver the same results when we're apart.
Hmm.
And that's fundamentally, I think, it's not that leaders who are saying get back to the office are short-sighted, unintelligent, draconian. I think, generally speaking, like, I know I can get the results when we're together. I'm not sure we can, and I'm not sure the erosion of our culture and our team. I'm not sure how that happens when we're
Hmm.
apart, right? And so I think we
Hmm.
have to sort of see this from both perspectives, and we're making
Hmm.
the sausage right now,
Hmm.
and there's very few companies, very few, I would say less than 1% of the companies in the world started fully remote. Okay.
Yep.
Most have
Yep.
done a transition. Okay.
Yep.
And so we don't have a lot of longitudinal studies or evidence to
Correct.
give us confidence yet, right? And
Hmm.
so I'll give you a really interesting example. So I work with a company, and they told me a few years ago, we're going to be the best company to work from remotely in the world. I said,
Hmm.
phenomenal. I'm excited to
Hmm.
be part of that challenge. And then I said,
Hmm.
what does that look like to you? How are you going to
Hmm.
know you're the
Hmm.
best company to work from
Hmm.
remotely? Like, what does that look like? What's happening? How are you going to design for that to happen? And that's when they
Hmm.
went, well, we don't know. Well,
Hmm.
here we are 2 years after they said that. And guess what they're doing?
Return to office.
Come on back. And now it's hard because they never were together, right? They
Yeah.
had a little bit of a nucleus, but now you've hired people all over the place. And getting people to come to an office is like, okay, now you've got to have a travel
It's
budget.
hard. Yeah.
Now, and you're going to have to do it opportunistically, which means when someone
Hmm.
quits over there in that state or that country, you're going to hire their replacement in headquarters. And
Correct.
that's going to take you years to get to be all
To
together again,
same level
unless,
of productivity and work culture, right? I
but
mean,
but you don't, I
yeah.
don't know, like, what does that even mean, same level of productivity, because you were never together, right? So
Correct.
what,
Correct.
but I think what it means is the business is struggling,
Yeah.
and the communication isn't optimal. And so there were some
Right.
signs, right? Like, we're not collaborating as much, we're not
Yeah.
communicating as much. And the belief now is, hey, if we're all in the same place, we will navigate problems more effectively if we're together.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
don't, will that be true? I don't know. We could have a leadership
Hmm.
problem. I just don't
Hmm.
know.
Hmm.
Right.
Hmm.
So that, I thought that's just an interesting situation.
Yeah.
So that's remote work. And that is
Hmm.
I really believe there is no right answer there. There is what is
Hmm.
right for you and your
Yeah.
team to build
Right.
value.
Right.
But I do believe, my advice to every client I have is, when they say, Steve, should we be together? Should we be hybrid? Should we be remote? My answer is yes. I'm like,
Hmm.
no, we, which one? And I'm like,
Yes,
yes.
to
And they go,
what?
oh, all of them? Well, I said, yeah, you're going to have to experiment, because there's some chemistry that's going to give you an optimal output, and you need to go find what that is. And it's not one size fits all talent strategy. That's why I love the period in time that I'm in right now, because we've gone
Hmm.
from everyone does works this way to everyone works lots of different ways, right?
Yeah. Correct.
And it's more of a challenge for a leader to have all kinds of different, diversity. Like, someone says, well, Steve, that's unfair if that team gets to work from home and that team has to be,
True.
because of, the need for their job to be in a lab or in front of the customer, like they have to be. I said, well, do you pay everyone the same? And they said, well, no. I said,
Hmm.
well,
Hmm.
it's already unfair, right?
Created
You're
those
paying,
disparities. Yeah, those disparities
right.
are
You've
already
already got
there, right?
disparity. So it's like, can you live with that? Right. And so that's that whole
Hmm.
conversation. I think those are some key things that I think about to help the audience think
So,
this through.
Steve,
Now,
follow up on
mm,
that, right? I mean, just
mm,
a follow up that's coming on my mind is personalization is huge now, right? As we go, and even in the coming years, I think the level of personalization is only going to increase, or the demand for personalization is going to only increase, right? Individuals are going to say, "Hey, I want this, and this person wants that," so we can't have same yardstick for everyone, right?
mhm.
But that presents a huge challenge for HR folks, right? HR teams who are designing policies and processes. Um, there is a thought of standardization versus chaos. How do you manage and being having been an HR professional? So how do you tackle this?
Yeah, well, my least favorite job as a human resource professional is policies. I mean, and you ask anyone that I've worked with, I've broken more and eliminated more than I've made because I think we've gotten in our own way. And if I always tell
Hmm.
people, if you want an initiative to fail in a company, call it an HR initiative. That's how you get it to fail because nobody
Right.
nobody wants that.
Nobody.
So
Yeah.
so you have to advocate through the business, and business leaders say, "Hey, I want to achieve this." Okay. So I think we have to start this conversation around how do we build the best value? That's
Hmm.
that's
Hmm.
number one. And
Hmm.
how you build the best value is you have great team, number one, you have great leaders.
Hmm.
So I love what Aaron Levy, the CEO of Airbnb, said. He goes, "How can
Hmm.
any company think
Hmm.
that the best people live within a 30-mile radius of the company? Like, how
Not
can you think
possible. Yeah. Hmm.
how is that even possible? I mean, look at
Hmm.
the economy where you're
Hmm.
living. Like, you have
Hmm.
teams all across India that
Yep.
are
Yep.
supporting businesses in every country in the world, right?
Correct. Correct.
Probably you have probably the most remote talent of any country in
Yep.
the world, I would argue,
Yep.
given, my little view of the world. And how's that going? I don't know. It's great. You're accessing incredible talent, and it's probably higher now, but it's generally
Hmm.
lower cost than some high
Yep.
market, high
Right.
compensation cost environments like San Francisco,
Hmm.
for example, which one is one of the highest ones. So
Hmm.
I think the way I think about this is we're going to have to experiment. You're going to have to try. I mean, I've been
Hmm.
super interested in these companies that said, okay, you're hired to work in San Francisco and your wage is X and you can
Hmm.
go work anywhere. But if you go work in the suburbs of the country of New York, upstate, and some, living near the Great Lakes where, we're going to have to adjust your compensation. And I'm like,
Yep.
you're going to have to adjust their compensation? Like, really? So you're basing their pay based on the cost of
Where they
living.
are based. Yeah. Correct.
That's right.
Hmm.
Because and what's happened during the pandemic, interestingly enough, is a global, it used to have geographic salary bands, and now we've got sort of a global salary band that's sort of
Right. Right.
agnostic to cost of living. Like,
Hmm.
who wouldn't want to go to a lower cost of living because then my savings goes up,
Correct. Correct.
my value goes up. And San Francisco, one of the highest costs, has the fastest time frame from someone comes here and leaves here because they come
Leaves
and go,
here.
wow, I got a huge salary, and then they realize I've got no savings because my
Savings at
rent,
all. Yeah.
my
Correct.
transportation, my food, everything is higher.
Yeah.
So I think it's a tricky one, and that we're not used to this. And I don't know that
Hmm.
policies and practices are the way out of it, but we've got to share some learnings as we go here. And I'm seeing companies do some interesting things. There are some companies that I know that are getting more comfortable that, hey, we know how to lead remotely. We know the rhythm, which is like, okay, if we're apart, we need to have a phone call on Monday, we need to have a phone call on Friday, and every quarter we're going to meet in person. And we just know that's the case. And when we
Hmm.
meet in
Hmm.
person, it's all about relationship building.
Yep.
So, and one of the dimensions that I think is really awesome about this whole conversation, it's forcing us to understand what's the value of being together, and what's the
Which
value
is
of being apart.
relationships, basically.
Why
Yep.
should we be in the same building? Like, why? Why? Because I will tell you, and I bet you would agree with me, most of my career, I've sat in a building, in an office or a cube, looking at a computer more than I have with
That's
a
true.
group of people that I'm around.
Yep.
And my whole
Yep.
my whole career was, in office, the whole career.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I'm an
Yep.
extrovert and I like being around people. And
Hmm.
and it's not, this whole remote thing, it's not for everybody, especially the
Hmm.
students that are graduating. Like, I didn't go to school to like sit at home the rest of my life. Like,
True.
I want to
True.
go meet people and be part of a community
Correct.
and feel the human energy. So, I think it's incumbent upon every organization to try to figure out how we can make
Hmm.
this work and to see. And there are some, for example, there's a lot of merit for teams to meet on Zoom versus in person, because the
Hmm.
person in the room who's always talking over everybody cannot talk over everybody on Zoom because the microphone just
Can be
drowns
muted.
everybody out.
Yeah.
Yeah, they get drowned out. And so it can be more collaborative. From a sales perspective, very few every CEO that it was making customer, visits all around the world. Was so
Yep.
happy during Zoom because I could talk to more customers. They're not pissed off that I'm not visiting them, and everyone's getting the same amount of
Yeah.
treatment. And then every
Correct.
executive team that had that one guy in Bangalore or the one person in Kansas City who has
Right.
to be there because their parents are sick and they can't be in headquarters, they
Now
don't
you
feel
can be.
isolated anymore, right?
Correct.
They feel a
Correct.
part of the team. So, we're learning some really good lessons here. Being together in person wasn't the greatest in all circumstances for everybody, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Let's talk about AI, Steve,
Mm,
right? It's the big elephant in the room. Although it's not an elephant, it's a reality now, right?
sure.
We have newer models coming in. Every day there is something or the other dropping by, right? Organizations are changing. We have agents coming in, we have operators coming in. Very soon we're going to have, in fact, we already have, we have AI team members coming in as part of our teams, right? How are the workplaces going to evolve, and how should the workplaces start looking at AI in a more strategic manner? Because it's going to happen, right? Either it's going to happen by force or it's going to happen by choice, right?
Yeah.
Which side do you land on? And secondly, I want to understand your perspective of how's the role of a manager going to evolve in this new paradigm?
Okay, well, we don't have 3 hours to get to all of that, but we'll try in very small snippets. I'm not a technologist, but here's what I will tell you as someone who studies human behavior in organizations like constantly. I am we are using AI and implementing AI like we have all the technology deployments in history. Let's
Hmm,
bring it in, do something faster, be more
hmm,
productive, cut costs. That is
hmm,
the wrong approach with artificial
hmm.
intelligence. We're
Yep.
trying to deploy this in a way that's how we've done it. This is not software. This is
Hmm,
not technology, or it's not a tool. It's like electricity. It's shining a light on different things. And so what's disheartening to me is most of the companies are coming out going, look, we're cutting costs. We're letting people go. We're finding
hmm.
we're finding out how to do more with fewer people, when the real value is we're deploying it to find new markets, to grow our top line, to build
Yep.
revenue, to be more impactful, and to be more successful. That's the true opportunity here. But what is everyone doing first? Oh, look at us. We just replaced 400 customer service people. Don't need those losers. And I'm
Hmm,
thinking, play that out, organization. Just
hmm.
play it out. Who's going to want to work for you when you're so proud of how you're using AI to eliminate
Right.
people in your organization? So I just got a request from the LinkedIn news desk today to comment on a report that they just published, which is the hottest new jobs in San Francisco based on
Hmm,
postings and interest in these new postings.
hmm.
And four of them are all AI related. So
Yep.
what we don't know is all the new careers and jobs that are going to be created with AI.
Correct.
But my
Correct.
strong suggestion is it's sort of embedded in the way you ask the question. We all have to be students of AI right now. We all
Hmm.
have to look at this, and I strongly encourage everyone to recognize that the founders and creators of AI are as terrified as they are excited about the future. This
True.
is not a baked cake. It's not. It's evolving.
Not at
There are
all.
huge ethical considerations,
Correct.
massive. And if we just run in, oh yeah, it's all good, let's go. Well, there's going to be some consequences. Even Sam Altman releases ChatGPT, and the next week he's flying to Washington D.C. to tell the senators, "You better put some laws together because this thing that I just released in the market
Correct.
has
We don't
some
know how
real
it's going to
risk
be.
to it."
Correct.
Right. Right. And so I think we all have to be students. I think every company should have an AI strategy. I think every company should have, for every AI initiative, there should be what
Hmm.
I call like a food label. Like,
Hmm.
every piece of can of food that you buy at the
Hmm.
store on the back has a nutrition label. Every
Yep.
project
Yep.
should have the AI organization nutrition value. Is this
Hmm.
good for our people? Is it good for our careers? Is it good for our customers? Is it good? Are we ethically solid here? You know, and that's where we need to start.
Hmm.
And I think that as I said, I am very sad to see that the earliest media reports on this is, oh, Armageddon, all these jobs are going to be lost. And that is just disheartening and terrifying to the workforce. Why are we
Yeah.
talking about that? Why don't we start talking more about all these new career opportunities, all these new ways that you can make an impact? If I take a
True.
look at one of the most conservative retail and giants in the world, Walmart, And what
Hmm.
they did, I think, is a great example. And I never thought I would be quoting Walmart for leading edge AI deployment, but they essentially took their 50,000 of their salaried workers. Okay, these are not people in the stores; these are people in
Yeah.
administrative roles all over the world, and they gave them
Hmm.
a generative AI, tool, system, and said, "Hey, here's this thing. You can access it through your phone. Please use this to find
Hmm.
ways that you can do your job better. You can delight our customers more. You can lead your teams more effectively. We don't know how you could use it, but go ahead and experiment with it." And what happened was just like an unbelievable groundswell of ideas and creativity and innovation,
Ideas. Yeah.
so much so that they doubled down and said, okay, we're going to do this with another 50,000 people. And that is phenomenal. But that's so different from here's the manual, here's the 50,000 Oracle consultants we're going to bring in to teach you how to use the tool.
Yeah, I know.
This is different. It's different. And I think the best, simple term that I've heard is augmentation.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of promise out there, but are we really seeing a big benefit? Like a couple of my friends right now are using this new operator model. Like, oh, we're gonna, build an operator. And I go, how's it going? Like, well, I figured out how to order pizza. I'm like,
Yep.
okay. So there's a lot of promise, but not a lot of radical,
Correct. Correct.
solutions just yet.
Just yet, I think we're just around the corner, Steve. I think a lot of, for me, I think 2025 is going to be a very groundbreaking year in terms of what, capabilities it's going to add, etc. So I think let's see how that goes,
Yeah. Yeah.
primarily.
Well,
Coming back to
let me
my,
answer the second. Yeah. Let me answer the second part of your
yes, the
question.
second part, yeah.
How do I think about AI and leadership? So to me, the coolest part about AI is it's forcing us to have a conversation about what makes us really different as human beings. What distinguishes us in a universe of infinite technical information and
Hmm.
insights?
Hmm.
What distinguishes us is what makes us fundamentally human. Our capacity to navigate conflict, to talk about hard things, to have empathy, to lead, to communicate, to deal with real, differences of opinion, right? And so I love that fact. And for leaders, I've built my whole career on dealing with two people that see something very, very differently and trying to
Hmm.
find some common ground, or they
Hmm.
disagree, or they're arguing, or they're fighting, or whatever. And this is most of what I'm dealing with is like this person disagrees, this team disagrees with this team. Like there's a fight for control or power or whatever it is. And
Correct.
so I have to find a way to have a conversation so that we work through it.
Correct.
AI is phenomenal,
Hmm.
phenomenal at giving
Hmm.
us constructive ways of working
Hmm.
through differences of opinion.
Hmm.
And so I think there's a great tool. So let's take the most dreaded thing in the world of work, which is the performance review, which everyone hates. Now,
Yeah.
what's the purpose of a performance review? To give feedback, manager to employee, to
Correct.
realize greater performance. Why doesn't it work so well? Because I'm afraid that if I give you real direct feedback, Ashish, you're going to hate me,
You're
you're
gonna
going to
feel
get
bad. Yep.
emotional, and you're not
Hmm.
going to do
Hmm.
your job. And
Yeah.
I'm not equipped based on my education experiences and language, limitations to really talk about something very hard for you. So now I can go to some AI agent and go, hey, I've got this employee, Ashish. They're doing some things that are concerning me. This is kind of their profile. This is what I need them to do better. This is what I'm worried about is going to happen when I tell them about these things. Can you help deliver this information to him in a constructive way that's going to motivate him, and
Yep.
get him excited? And so, and that's really helpful, and we're going to have some really great insights. And I know many of my progressive colleagues in the world of talent are really finding enormous value in AI to help people understand each other more. And we're in a
Yep.
world where polarization is expanding. We are not, this is like shocking in a world where we have more knowledge and insight than we've ever had. We've got more conflict than we've ever
True.
had it feels
True.
like on the global
True.
community, right?
True. True. Awesome, Steve. Awesome. I think we can continue this chat for hours and hours, and we would still have a lot to talk, but we have a very limited time. And I have
Yep.
one last, very brief question for you,
Sure.
right? What is your one advice that you would like to give HR leaders of today for the future, right? If you were to give them one advice, that what should they do, and maybe what should they not do in this day and age?
Yeah, I think for human resource leaders, I would say we have the opportunity of a lifetime to find a way to leverage artificial intelligence to make work more incredible, to make it so rewarding, to make it so impactful. Use this opportunity to win back our relationship with technology. I feel over the last, I started working before email and before the internet and all that. And what technology I feel has done is introduce more stress, more anxiety, more fear of being behind,
Hmm.
more discomfort in the lives
Hmm.
of people, not greater productivity,
Hmm.
not greater joy and satisfaction. And I think AI has got to give us a chance, has given us the
Hmm.
chance to win that back.
Hmm.
So let's use that and say, how can I do this so that I have greater joy and satisfaction and
Yeah.
achievement, in the lives of my employees. I think we've got that opportunity now. So that's the advice, like use it. Don't use it to just cut headcount. Come on, that's like such a bottom feeder, lowest
Yeah.
1% of what AI can deliver for us. Yeah.
True. True. Well, thank you so much, Steve. I love this conversation, and I'm sure our audience is gonna love it as well. So thank you so much for your time. And so, folks, there you have it. We'll see you next time. You take care.